What's up, everybody? This is the Messed Up to Setups podcast. I'm comedian Michael Halcomb. Today I have with me my friend Phil Ketron. He's based in Tennessee, and you maybe know him actually as Grampy from GrampyComedy.com. We're going to talk today about producing, performing. We're going to pull back the curtains on comedy and just have a good time and share some laughs together. So stick around. You're not going to want to miss this.
It's all messed up, yeah. Everything's messed up. We're going from this mess up to the next setup. Everything seems so messed up, but it's just our setup.
Everybody, I'm Michael Halcomb. Today with me, my friend Phil Grampy Ketron. Phil, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, doing good, doing good. How are you, Michael?
I'm
I would
good,
call
man.
you
Yes.
the professor.
Yeah, right. Either way, whatever, brother. So it's good to see you, man. You look good. You doing well?
Yeah, doing well.
Yeah.
Hey, it's spring.
It's
You know,
spring, man.
spring has, and
You guys getting torched with pollen over where you live?
we live in Tennessee. I
Yeah.
think the Great Smoky Mountains is the world capital #1 for allergies. So all these people moving to Tennessee, just be aware that we do
Yes.
have a lot of allergies.
Yes, man. So just moving back to North Carolina, dude, I'm feeling it. Every time there's a season change, there's usually a day or two where I'm just out of commission because, the weather just destroys my allergies. So yeah, hopefully I'm over that hump right now, but we'll see, dude. Um, I lost my voice like a week ago.
Well, that's probably a good thing. Your wife probably enjoyed that,
Yes.
didn't she?
That's why it's like my wife, like an answer to her prayers. My students too, man. They got a
So
day off class. So yeah. So you're in Knoxville. How long you been in Tennessee? Is that your whole life you've been there or what?
not actually Knoxville. It's more of the Bristol, Tennessee, the Upper East Tennessee area.
All right. So Bristol, have you been around Tennessee most of your life or?
Most of my life, I've lived in North Carolina twice, lived in Disgusted, Georgia once, lived in Lakeland, Florida. I've been around. Of course, I'm a UT Tennessee graduate out of Knoxville. I love Knoxville, love the mountains, all the stuff
Okay.
that we get to do here. And of course, it's a little tough sometimes comedy wise, in that there's not as many open mics that you hear about. Whether Nashville has a lot of different things going on that I wished we had here locally, but we don't.
Right.
But we're trying to do what we can do.
Yeah, Nashville seems to be hopping, man. It seems busy. There's always things going on there.
It's the country music and the bachelorette capital of the world. Bachelorette party capital of the world
Right.
is what I hear. So
Okay.
that kind of leads itself into comedy, doesn't it?
Guess so, yeah. You've been doing comedy for a little bit. Let's talk about, I mean, your comedy is kind of unique in that you're not, when you go on stage, you're not Phil. You morph into a character. You do character comedy with the character you've named Grampy.
Right.
So talk a little bit about like how how did you make the decision to do character comedy rather than just like straight stand-up comedy? And then like how did the character of Grampy come about?
Okay. Well, I would like to say that it was some planned out process, but it wasn't. But I come from a business background. So I've got a master's degree in business, and marketing is kind of my forte. And, there's this thing called an A/B test. So you take two different approaches and you do them kind of the same, but you do them different. So approach A was being Phil Ketron and being a comedian on stage. Plan B was to be somebody a little bit different. And I've been doing comedy about 4 years, but you and I both know that years doesn't mean anything. This is
Right.
a part-time gig for me. And so in reality, I've been doing it for about maybe really doing it. Maybe I'm on that 18 months to 24 months. Cause I
Okay.
kind of turn it on and turn it off. But when I'm an insurance agent in the Tri-Cities, and so people were like, wait a second, that's my insurance guy. What's he doing comedy? And then when I would go out of the area, Ketron, people know how to say my last name here, but I've heard Ketron, they butcher your name. So my philosophy, putting my business hat on, is back to the product, price, placement, promotion, is how can I become known? I think we all meet somebody and 3 seconds later, we've forgotten their name. So if
Yeah.
we're trying to create a product, how can we create a product to where we're recognizable? So that's where my version B was Grampy, and that I'm 62. People say you look good for your age. Well, that's a blessing and a curse. I'll take it. And I do have grandkids, so that's kind of my grandkids' name. So I just kind of adopted
Okay.
that. So I thought, well, whenever I stop being an insurance agent 8 years from now, at that point, I might be able to switch the set and go straight Grampy. I'm obviously going to be a lot more believable as Grampy. And that's
Right.
I guess, the one negative feedback. But my vision, if you will, and I think every comedian needs to have a vision. I always have heard this thing that a dream without a plan is just a wish.
Right.
So I've got a vision of how I'm going to progress from being an insurance agent to being I won't say full time comedian, but that's kind of, and it's easier as a character to be silly.
Hmm.
Whenever you're yourself, and I've heard comedians say you got to find your persona, you got to find your voice. All that to me is bunk. I mean,
Okay. All right.
let's face facts. Funny's funny, right? Like
Uh,
Emu, Larry the Cable Guy, all those guys, Fluffy. What do they have in common? They're funny. It doesn't matter whether I'm performing as Phil Ketron or if I'm performing as Grampy. Funny's funny. And I've seen a lot of people who are their authentic selves that aren't funny, in my opinion. So that's my long version is my A is Phil, my B is Grampy, but Grampy just seems to be more marketable. Well, I've even got whoopee cushions with Grampy on it.
yes.
And everybody loves my whoopee cushions. They won't remember me, but they'll remember my whoopee cushions.
I want to push back a little bit, just a friendly pushback. I think the persona stuff is I'm like fascinated by it, and I think it can be helpful. When I look at like Larry the Cable Guy, right? He's a blue collar redneck. Look, like there's a persona there, and I think the benefit of like dialing into persona is that it helps you write from a certain perspective. Now, I do think every comedian has a multitude of voices they can tap into, right? Like I'm a dad, I'm a father, I'm a professor, and those are all different voices, but they're the real me. And so I don't know, I think some of that stuff's happy or helpful rather. But I hear you.
Well,
I think it's fun.
that goes back to placement, finding your audience.
Yeah.
That I can tell what my audience is. It's gray hair, no hair, and frosted hair. And so if I see those people in the audience, I know I'm going to hit. Now, if you got your younger, I don't even know what generation we are anymore. Got
Yeah.
these younger kids and all that, I start
Alpha
telling them,
right now, Generation Alpha.
so we're starting over.
Yeah.
So, but you see what I'm saying? It's back to the product price placement promotion. My product is Grampy. My
Mm,
placement is for older people, and I kill at nursing homes. I
yes.
mean, literally. But assisted livings, nursing homes, the older crowds, fundraisers, I fit that niche. And I do clean. Anybody can do dirt.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy laughs. It's
Yes.
low hanging fruit. And what I try to tell people is if I see, I can't even think what the guy's name is, the late night TV anymore. I don't watch it. I'm in bed. I'm in sleep. But if they ask you to come up, I won't say David Letterman or Johnny Carson. If they said, "Hey, we want you on there, but it's got to be 5 minutes of clean," how many comedians are just going to crumble
Yeah.
because
Right.
they don't have it?
Right.
But
Right.
that's just me. I'm preaching. You got me on my preaching
No,
box.
I appreciate I love the transition into preaching. So let's talk about like more about the character because some people might claim that this isn't authentic, I don't know. What do you say to that?
Well, it's more of a character. It's still me. It's still my life experience. It's still my grandkids. It's still my wife. It's still all those kind of things. It's still me. I'm just presenting it in such a way that it's more relatable, if
Mm,
that makes sense. I mean, I don't go to the extreme like an emu or I can't even think what the guy's name is. You know who I'm talking about. But I don't go to that extreme. One of the funniest comedians I've ever seen is Dale Jones.
mm,
And Dale Jones absolutely brings it. And he's like Ernest on steroids or drugs or
right.
meth,
Right.
fentanyl. I don't know what it is, but he is one funny guy. So in some ways, it's just a presentation of who you are.
Yeah. Well, I think you're like, you're into producing as well, and, I mean, I'm just now dipping my toes into that, and whoo, man, that's a different animal than just doing the stand-up, you know, so what have been some of your experiences that you've had, like, some victories? What have you learned from, producing? Like, would you encourage other comedians to try to produce? Like, I don't know, let's jump into that. Start wherever you want.
Don't, don't produce.
I love the bluntness here. That's bunk. Don't do it.
Well, the thing is that my brand, my style of comedy is more of theater, coffee shops, those type things. It's not
Yeah,
comedy clubs.
yeah,
And I'm not that's not what I'm doing. So when I was looking at trying to get booked, I'm like, why am I waiting on somebody else to book me?
yeah,
So I charted my own waters
yep,
and jumped into it. And I've been very fortunate that, some of the comedy club owners, I've negotiated with them that some sort of share arrangement that, hey, I'll bring in a comedian and we'll split the cost or split the ticket sales and so forth. And that's had hit or miss success. I mean, I've had some really good comedians, Joel Byers, Udi Madavi, some of the people that have been on your podcast so far, and
yeah,
some really good talent. And one of the things that I think that the struggle is that they either want a lot of money. I'm talking about the talent,
yeah.
want a lot of money, a lot of guarantees, but unless you're like a Dale Jones, who I also brought in, he sells tickets.
Mm,
So you can talk all you want to about bringer shows and so forth, but you've got to have somebody to sell tickets.
right.
So my approach is to have somebody that's the headliner, that's kind of a known person, and then to fill it in with some local people who can bring their local family and friends.
Mm,
So you're kind of networking that away. But I have produced probably over 20 shows. I've made money on, let me think, none of them.
yeah,
But my strategy is that when I'm bringing somebody in, obviously I'm going to perform most of the
yeah,
time, probably 95% of the time I'm going to perform, and I'm going to get to rub elbows with the Joel Byers, the
right.
Dale Jones, those type people. So it's an investment. It's a networking investment. So if you're looking to produce to make money, unless you're in an area that is known for comedy and can sell a lot of tickets, it's not something to enter into lightly.
Yeah. Hmm.
And
So the
the other
advice
thing
to
that
not do it then is like, don't do it if you want to make money, especially early on. But there are the benefits of networking, connecting with other people, plus getting some stage time. And I think one of the great benefits is you get to craft a show in the direction you want.
That's correct. And that's, I'm the Northeast Tennessee producer for Clean Comedy Collective and really enjoy working with Drew Davis and have met a lot of comedians through that. And I try to have my headliners come from Clean Comedy Collective if I can.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work that way, but that's how I'm trying to do it. But the one struggle that I've had with selling tickets is that most comedy clubs or comedy venues, they make their money on alcohol sales
Right.
or food sales and so forth. Well, the places that I'm doing it, that's kind of a contrary to the audience that I have, if
Right.
that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a little tougher to get enough money to get the kind of talent that you want. And
Mm,
one suggestion I would have for anybody out there that's trying to get booked is that if I posted on social media, I'm looking for a comedian, 5 minutes, whatever, I can have 1,000 people respond in literally one day. But what are they bringing to the table? There's a thing in sales called the whiffum factor. What's in it for me? So if I'm the booker, what is in it for me? I know what's in it for you. You get stage time, you get paid and so forth, but are the ticket sales on my back? Or are you
mm,
going to be able to do it? So I always say every comedian out there is a nobody. And I don't mean that derogatory. Nobody knows you. You're hoping to get to that point where somebody knows you. Ultimately, the people that make money in this business are the everybody's, the Nate Bargatze's, the Leon Morgans. Pretty much everybody knows, and that's a hard climb.
mm, mm.
I would say in comedy, less than 1% of people make good money doing comedy.
Yeah.
That's just my mind.
Yeah. So if somebody were to book you or like to email you, what are you looking for in an email? Like if I don't know, if they're not well known, what are you looking for?
Well, I would first thing is I had a lady reach out to me recently, and she said first thing she says, "I'm funny." Okay, because I'm serious. There's a lot of comedians out there that that's not their tag. That's I struggle with them. I've looked at some of their tapes, and I had one lady. She got really upset. Well, why did you ask for a tape? And I'm like, I'm not going to just book
Right,
you based upon the
right.
fact that you want to be on there. But this one lady, she says I'm funny, and I've watched her tape, and she is funny. So I'm going to go try to book her sometime in the near future. But that was her lead in. I'm funny.
Huh. Okay.
So at the end of the day, your show is only as good as the content. Same as if I was writing a book, writing a movie, it's only as good as your content. But there's a lot of bad content out there. And if you get people to start coming to a show and you've got bad content, that's not going to last. It's not sustainable. And that's the reason I try to bring in some fresh people. It's producing is you got to have some real, and you got to be able to tell people no.
Mhm.
And you got to be able to tell them why or just
Yeah.
live with that. Because as soon as you tell them no, if they got a show or an opportunity, they're not going to book you on their show.
Right.
And that's okay.
Right. Right.
There's a lot of nepotism and networks and
Yeah.
you're not in my clan, so I'm not in your clan. I shouldn't use the word clan. That's probably a bad gang
Tennessee.
denomination. You're not my denomination.
Well, on the business side too, like, I mean, for your shows, you have to have. I mean, you talk about content, but also the branding, and then for your own comedy, you have brandings. Talk a little bit about that. You're bringing this like business aspect to the table. Talk about branding.
Well, again, it comes down to the name. There are so many comedians out there. Your name is going to get butchered, but how is your name rememberable? I mean, I joked with you, Michael,
Yeah,
by calling you the professor.
yeah,
So, see, if I'm branding you, that's something that you're bringing that's distinct, that's unique to you. It is you. It's your
yeah.
persona. It is you. You're the professor. It's
Mm,
like the comic doc. Dean. He's the comic doc. He's an
yeah,
ENT doctor. I brought him in for a show. So it's easy for people, and it's like connecting to your audience. It's that relatability and that connectability. So everybody knows a Grampy, or they kind of, if I say Grampy right off the gate, they're going to know I'm old. I'm not going to be in there 20 years old. I am a baby boomer, and baby boomers get on my nerves. I'm sorry. These people that have these phones and they're doing FaceTime calls in public, and where did that crap start? And where did this stuff start with all these dogs that you got to carry around? I mean, Lowe's has gotten so bad now with their animals. They've got a section called a pea treated wood. It's no joke. Pea treated wood where all the dogs have peed on it. I mean,
right.
it's
They're gonna
that
start
is a
the
joke.
humane
I'm just goofing.
society out of Home Depot, man. Yeah, interesting. So, do you think it's beneficial for comedians then to have some sort of label or nickname, like you call me the professor. I don't know if that's my persona when I'm on stage. I kind of think of myself in a little bit of different light, but do you think that's pretty helpful to have
Well,
a name like that?
it's one of those things. If I had a hit song, if I was Leonard Skinner and Freebird, I better like doing Freebird at every concert for the rest of my life because that's what everybody's going to want to hear. So I
Right,
think that's the downside. It's just like a Dusty Slay. We're having a good time. We're having a good time.
right,
Jeff Foxworthy, you might be a redneck if
right.
Bill Engvall, here's your sign. So we have to have a calling card that somebody can zero in. Oh, yeah, I know that guy. Yeah, I've heard that guy. How are you going to create familiarity?
Mm, mm.
Does that make sense? Because
Yeah,
again,
totally
how
makes
many
sense.
comedians? How many comedians are there out there?
Yeah,
How many Johnny B's are there out there? How many? Everybody has abbreviated their last names.
yeah, right,
So, is it perfect? No, but my audience knows what I'm going to bring. They know it. They know it's going to be boomer humor, and that's my angle. Those were my jokes. And if I was writing a book, if I was Stephen King, if I say Stephen King, what are you going to think of? Horror
yeah,
movies,
horror, right.
horror books, mysteries, thrillers, those type of things. So what you're doing is really you creating a track. And what Grampy has done is create a track. Again, I'm not looking, I'm just being honest. Will I ever be a top-notch comedian? No.
Mm,
Will I have fun doing comedy? I do every time I go up.
nice.
And that was one thing that I read. I think Gene Parrott has in one of his
Yeah.
books
Yep.
is that every time you perform, if you don't have a good time, they're not gonna have a good
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
But you should to put on the best show that you can, a better show than you did the last time. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
I see so many people pull out on the audience. The audience was this. The audience. No, you sucked. I'm sorry. It's like there's. I'm not. It's all about connectability.
Yeah.
So if I go up and I do the best job I can do and I bring it and the audience responds, great. If they don't respond,
Right.
I still had a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. By the way, I'm getting ready to release a book review of one of Gene Parrott's books today on my website. So at the time of recording this, but yeah, man, boy, he is Parrott, his legacy's incredible, man. It's all this. He pretty much helped shape an entire generation of comedy, working with Bob Hope and comedians and of that era. Phenomenal. He's one of those names that more people should know than do. You know,
Yeah.
I think. But
Well, and there's a Judy Carter that does a good job.
right,
Joel Byers does. He's got his hot breath. I mean, there's some really talented people out there. Jerry Corley, of
yeah,
course, I love Jerry to death, but I have to have his videos recorded because there's an awful lot of noise between the instruction. I ain't got time for that. I'm sorry, I just
yeah,
ain't got time.
yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that we were thinking about was laughing at your own jokes. I think this is an interesting uh topic. Like, what's your perspective on that sort of thing? You actually, in your shows, you have kind of a cackle laugh you've developed that you do after a number of your jokes. So I'm curious what's your perspective on laughing at your own jokes. I laugh a lot at my own jokes, dude. So I don't know.
Laughter begets laughter. It's like
Mm,
yawning.
mm,
So I think if I get up there and I'm laughing at myself,
yeah,
laughing at something that happened, it's telling that audience it's okay for you to laugh. He's an idiot.
yeah,
You can laugh at him too. Now, I think that there is a proper amount, just like a lot of times you'll see these on Instagram, these videos, and you hear somebody in the back.
mm,
That's
yeah,
annoying, absolutely annoying to me. It just like like I don't know to laugh, but you understand what I'm saying. So
yeah,
so I have a cackle. Yeah,
yeah,
that's part of Grampy. Kind
yeah,
of just you know just living and laughing at life, and that's a lot of my jokes are just things are when you get to a certain age, things don't work.
yeah.
I tell people, it's like, what doesn't what hurt everything hurts, but what doesn't hurt doesn't work, and it's
Mm,
it's a true statement. All of a sudden, at what age do you get where you have a good ear and a bad ear? Good knee,
right,
bad knee? I mean, when does that start?
right,
It's
right.
you start labeling pieces and parts of your body.
Yeah, I think the laughing thing is interesting. Like the show you and I did together over in South Carolina a couple months back, somebody came up. I don't know if you were standing there, maybe you were, but somebody came up afterwards and said to me, "You know what I loved about this show? What's that? That you guys were both laughing on stage with us and having a good time." And I just thought, yeah, that's it. Like for me, as you alluded to earlier, I'm gonna have a good time when I go up there. And even if other people aren't laughing, I'm gonna laugh. I'm bound and determined to have a good time. And so I guess for me, it's not even that I'm laughing at my own jokes. I like laughing with the audience. I like having a good time.
And that's it. I mean, it's a performing art. It's entertainment.
Yeah.
And it's not about like I'm not a competitive comedian. I hate competitions
Yeah.
because my art's different than your art.
Right.
That doesn't mean mine's better or worse. It just means it's different. And so it's that's the kind of stuff that I think can take the air out of you as a comedian.
Mm,
And I think that, it's you got to draw those lines, put those guardrails up and say, here's what I'm going to do, here's what I'm not going to do. And I have to be honest with you, I'm not a big open mic fan
yeah. I don't go to open
because,
mics anymore.
well, I just hate listening to all the garbage.
Yep. Yep.
I'm like, be better, do better. but
Yeah.
that's my age. If I was 20 years of age, 25, well, it's funny kind of thing. But like Derek Stroop said, he stopped performing when he started hitting it big. Derek Stroop said is when he stopped performing for the back of the room and started performing for the main audience.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I don't go to open mics at all. One, I feel it's a waste of my time. Two, it's not my scene. Three, that's hard on my ears, dude. I just like don't want to hear the vulgarity, and I don't want to hear the same jokes every week, like from the same people, dude. Like, so I don't do them. And I know
Well,
a
they
lot of
say
comics, I know a lot of comedians swear by them, dude. But that's not for me.
Well, you and I both come up from a different perspective where we've been on stage. We don't have the stage fright. I think
Yeah.
and I do think timing wise, and when I'm leading up to a big show, I do try to do some open mics, just get that stage time, kind of get the rust off of it. But usually that stage has a pole in the back and it's a different audience. Just kidding. Here I'm the clean comedian.
Uh,
We're talking about a stripper pole in the back.
oh my gosh. Oh, you could have made a firehouse,
Yeah,
comment
there
there.
you go. But sorry.
But no, yeah, I don't know, man. I just that scene is not it's not for me, dude. Like, and yeah, for me, dude, my job is a professor. Like, I literally am up in front of people every day for hours talking. Like there's no and I've spent decades preaching, like I have thousands and thousands of, flight hours of, as it were, when it comes to public speaking. It's not the same as stand-up comedy, but I don't have stage fright. I'm comfortable with the mic, like in front of people. So I don't have that hurdle to get over like a lot of new comedians do, you know? And it's just different, so um I don't know.
But
Yeah. I
one
get
other
the
thing that
value of it, but
Yeah. Well, one other thing I try to be, and I think Greg Dean brought this up, and Gloria Johnson of not being programmed. I've seen so many people get on that they want to program their presentation, so to
yeah,
speak.
yeah,
So I never do mine the same way twice,
right.
and I feel like some of that open mic leads yourself into being programmed. And I've seen,
Yeah.
I think there was, I can't remember who it was that talked about how to not do a dissertation, to interact with the
Right.
audience. I've had some feedback to make statements instead of asking questions. I still don't know whether that's good or not. But I hate crowd work. I
Mm,
think comedy in general has gone towards crowd work, which is great for that person you're interacting with, but you can sure leave everybody else out. And then
mm,
there's a fine line between crowd work and belittling someone. I've
right.
seen a very popular, funny comedian that was talking about it was a female to female talking about this lady's hair in the audience. Well, that was funny, and everybody's now joking about that. But how do you think that person in the audience that had that hair feels?
Mm,
That's just not me. I'm
mm.
not a punch down comedian. I want everybody to have a good time. I want everybody to be friends when I leave, and I want everybody to love me.
Yeah.
Peace, love.
I'm trying to this may sound weird, but I'm trying to do a different type of crowd work these days that involves the room rather than individuals. And I feel like I've got like a few good things, like I've done a few things that have been working with that. And I find that to be really, really fun. Now, it's not to say I won't like, make a comment, interact with individuals during the show at all, but I find that the room crowd work is really, really fun for me. And it treats the room as a collective, and I was reading something last night, dude, and it was saying I can't even remember what it was, but it was saying like that a room. So let's say there's 100 people in a room. That room becomes a 100-headed monster, or like a one-headed monster. You could even say. In other words, the room becomes a thing all of its own. Every room becomes a monster all of its own, and that's why no two crowds or no two shows will ever be the same. And so if you're thinking like you're dealing with the room as a whole, I find that to be actually really fun. But
Well, and somebody watching this video would probably say, "Well, the reason you don't like crowd work is that you're not any good at it." Okay, but again, it's if I'm painting watercolors, if I'm an artist and I'm painting watercolors and that's what I want to do, I'm going to paint watercolors. That
sure.
doesn't mean watercolors is for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is comedians, we try to be all things to everybody instead
Mm,
of knowing who you are, figuring it out, and going for it.
yeah.
Well, I know who I am and I know what I'm going for. And I'm not making any excuses about that. But when I pay for a ticket, this is just me, but when I pay for a ticket and there was a lady and she's got a Netflix special out right now, and I saw her locally and she started in crowd work like right away.
Mm.
I left 10 minutes after the show.
Oh
10
my
minutes into the
goodness.
show, I left because I came to see her performing art, her ability to write a joke, her ability to deliver a joke. I didn't come to see her talk to this one person that they like drinking Mad Dog 2020 together.
Mm,
You said so.
yeah.
I see a lot of comedians that if I could give one suggestion for you, is make sure that your content is relatable. Now I say that as Grampy, but I've already told you my audience is not that 20-year-old.
Yeah.
But I heard a lady that, and she tells this joke all the time, and it drives me crazy. She talks about this book with six sisters. Well, if I've not read that book and I don't have any sisters, you've left me out for what, 5, 10 minutes of your set?
Mm,
It's stupid. I mean,
yeah.
in my mind, you're,
Mm. So, yeah, I guess on that note, like, I mean, you've been at it for a little bit. You said maybe 24 months if you add it all up or something like that, a couple of years. I mean, you've already given some insight, but if somebody's, I like asking the same question every time to all my guests. If somebody's watching this and they're thinking about pulling the trigger and trying stand up, or maybe they're like just wading into it and trying to learn to navigate it, what's like your best 1 to 2 pieces of advice you'd give?
I think the first thing is that don't refer to yourself as a stand-up comedian until you are one.
Okay. All right.
I mean, if we play tennis or we play golf, do we go around saying I'm a golfer or I'm a tennis? I mean, this we we start off this is a hobby. I mean, really, if once you start making money, maybe you can transition over that. I think if I was a Nate Bargatze, I'd be offended by all the people who say they're stand-up comedians. That's just me. That's just my own personal bias. Again, my identity's in Christ. I
Mm,
do a lot of different things, but it's not
yeah.
stand-up's just something I do.
Right.
It's not identity. But the second thing is it funny? Is it relatable? And are you having a good time? All the noise on the outside doesn't make a hill of bean of difference. And if you go to an open mic, it's another reason I don't like open mic. You're not going to get validated at an open mic.
Yeah. Right.
You got a room full of
Right.
comedians, and I was told this early on. You got a room full of comedians that one, they're just waiting their time to get on stage. They're thinking about what they're going to say. And if they've already performed on stage, they're thinking about what they should have said or how they should have done something different. All that an open mic is good for is networking,
Mm,
getting to know people, getting to know who's in the arena, who's doing this, who's doing that. That's all it's good for. So again, be relatable, but be funny. First and foremost, be funny. And
mm.
if it's so specific to you that it doesn't relate to anybody, don't tell the joke. You're wasting your time. You're wasting my time. That's even worse.
I love it, dude. Yeah, I think those are great pieces of advice. Well, let me point people to your website here. It's at grampycomedy.com, right? Is that
That is it.
that's correct? So let me see if I can get if I can pull it up here and we'll share it with people who are watching. Of course, people who are listening, you're not going to be able to see it, but go to grampycomedy.com and you can see there's a Phil in character right there as Grampy, and you can find out about Grampy. You can check out upcoming shows. You can see some clips on there. Join the mailing list. And do you have socials on here or no? Can people connect to your socials or
I'm not sure I've got them down there or not.
okay? Let me see.
That's another suggestion I would have for comedians is be careful how you spend your money. I've wasted
Mm,
a ton of money doing comedy and applying for festivals. Personally, I
yeah,
don't
dude.
think you should apply for a festival till you've been in it a minimum of 3 years. I mean, they'll be glad to take your money.
Yeah,
They'll
right.
be really glad to take your money. And I think that a lot of the festivals comes down to knowing somebody on the inside that can kind of help
Right.
pull it up. Otherwise, again, it's just a bunch. I would hate to be doing a festival and having to watch everybody's videos.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? how many videos that would be. I'm
That's why
sorry, how many. Well, and how many of those submissions are, and I look back to when I first started, and my videos, I was awful. That's the reason. I
right,
mean it.
right,
I mean, I've been doing it 4 years, time wise, 4 years. But again, it's just one of those things that just you're starting out, you're learning. And I thought, if I was learning to play guitar, would I go out and try to perform if I've only been playing guitar for 3 months or 6 months? I mean, how realistically, how good am I going to be? Right.
right, right.
This is a performing art.
No, dude, I think I think there's a lot of sound wisdom there. It could save a lot of people from some heartache, you know. And
But
it's
I see
hard,
people.
man. It's hard work, you
I
know.
see people that'll take a comedy class for 6 to 8 weeks, and they come out and they'll have a graduation show. And of course, all their family and friends and be there. They're great. They're on a high. And next thing you know, they'll post, "How do you get an agent?" Seriously.
Yeah,
Seriously. I mean, it's one of those things that, did I have those same kind of thoughts? Sure. I thought I was riding high and all that. But I think the other piece of advice, and I'll just add this, and maybe it's just me, is that you kind of got to know yourself.
mm,
What sacrifices are you willing to make? I'm on the downside of my career. When I get 70, would I like to get an RV and travel around and perform different places and perform on cruise ships? Absolutely, to a degree,
right,
to a degree,
right,
because I don't like
right.
traveling that much. But I see comedians, and we performed with one, a big Jake Hovis.
Yeah,
I mean, he gets in the car and drives
I
hours
know.
in hours and hours, and he gives up his family time. He gives up his road time. I mean, truck drivers are some of the unhealthiest people in the world. I think comedians are right there with them when they're
Yeah,
sitting there behind a car. And if you don't like to drive, you're in the wrong business. Maybe you
yeah,
need to write comedy. And by the way, if anybody out there has any good comedy jokes for seniors, I do pay for jokes. I have bought jokes. Now that's a different thing. Is thinking of having people who, and I've had a lot of people submit jokes to me that were not my character,
mm,
but I've had a couple of ones that it's just the premise that I get, and I take theirs and I'm able to build upon it and add to it my own flavor. But I have bought a couple of jokes, not exclusive, but just in some of the writing rooms. I would never steal a joke. And so
yeah,
when I say I buy a joke, I see a joke and I say, man, that would fit Grampy really well. Can I pay you for the use of it? And I don't see anything wrong with that.
yeah.
Again,
I don't
I
either.
didn't.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, well, let's see. I want to point people to Grampy.com and yeah, I think if people can book you and bring you out to the shows, they'll have a good time. And um, so go do that. Make sure you head over to Grampy.com, subscribe to the newsletter. After you've done that, friends, head over to MichaelHalcomb.live. Got a daily blog there. The podcast drops a couple times a week, and it's just I'm thinking about comedy all the time, writing about it all the time, and you can get in on that there. But this podcast that you're watching, it appears on Spotify, on Substack, on iTunes, and YouTube, and other places. So make sure you're subscribed, and really appreciate you watching or listening. But we're gonna wrap it up there, friends. Phil, thanks, man, for coming on. This is only part one, by the way. We got a part
Thank
two
you.
coming up, so make sure you subscribed. But Phil, thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you, Professor.
Appreciate that. And thanks everybody for watching or listening. Stay tuned for part two. I'm Michael Halcomb. I'm going to stop there and say, I hope that helps.
It's all messed up, yeah. Everything's messed up. We're going from this mess up to the next setup. Everything seems so messed up, but it's just ourselves.